Does that
Well, yeah,
work?
I was just going to say I recognize Sean. Just so I'm going to may pick on him. We are childhood friends actually, and I did not realize he was going to be joining. So that I haven't seen him in quite a bit time. But well, good to see Sean. It'd be nice to see your video as well. So I'll pick on him a little
Yeah.
bit.
Good to see
See,
you, man.
and we bring people together. That's the beauty
That's
of it.
right. That's
The
right.
village.
Yeah, it's the village part. But my name is Jazz Patterson. I'm the founder of Process Village. And again, I want to just thank you all for being here. I'll just give my introduction and then I'll let the rest of the panel introduce themselves before we turn it over to our moderator, Quincy Sunil, who we would love to have her at the end also give her introduction. Again, I'm Jazz. Currently, I work at Texas Health Dallas. I am the manager of the Ortho and Neuro Service Line program. And really my background is Lean Six Sigma. I've been doing it for about a little over 20 years now. I love the work and I love just working with people. So that's my introduction. I'll turn it over to one of the other panelists.
I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name's Sonia Manabus, and I know most of everybody that's on the panel. And well, everyone that's on the panel, but definitely know almost everybody that's on the call. So it's really great to see familiar faces. Some of you have already heard a lot about Six Sigma from me, and those of you that have not, you are in for a treat. I am a manager of volunteer services at Texas Health Dallas. I've been there for 13 years. I also dabble in marketing and with THR and the marketing team. I'm also the steering committee chair for the campus, and I'm also the host of the academic internship.
Thank you.
I can go next. My name is Karan Patel. Everybody calls me KP. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Select Specialty Hospital here in Cincinnati. And I'm actually originally from Dallas, which is how I know that most of the team members here. Just don't know Quincy, so nice to meet you, Quincy. But I go way back with Jazz and Sonia, actually, all the way to my volunteer days. And so I won't tell your story just yet, but really glad to be a part of this group and just excited to share my journey with all of you. But I will always, as usual, give my shout outs to Sonia and Jazz. They are the reason why I have been successful in my career thus far. So thank you to both of you.
Check is in the mail, KP. On the way. Bob?
Hi, my name is Bob Barker. I'm an IT project management team lead at Texas Health Dallas. I got into Lean Six Sigma just kind of by accident, just by talking to some other people at our hospital, and met some of my favorite people on the planet, which are on the call today. So hopefully everybody will get something great out of this. We've got some awesome talent on the call.
Thank you. Quincy?
Hey, thank you so much. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Quincy Sinley. I'm a program manager at UT Dallas. And so I have the opportunity to work with undergraduate and graduate students who are pursuing degrees in healthcare management or healthcare leadership and management. I also just help kind of guide students in degree plans and internships, really kind of looking at what is the end goal career and then working backwards as far as what can and should students be involved with in terms of classes, experiences, internships, and preparation. And so kind of through that role, I've gotten to know Jazz and Sonia really well. A little bit Bob Barker, you know, in terms of us having students placed with him as well at THD. But really, I'm here to kind of help guide a conversation, which we have a lot just in my office, you know, down the hallways at UTD, as far as what can students be doing now to help prepare themselves best for this career. And so, you know, really from the start, my first time ever meeting with Sonia, she said, "Do you know KP?" And I said, "No, I don't. He was before my time." And so he really has this reputation with THD and then also within students and faculty, you know, what he did to get where he is today. And so I know just through his, you know, preparation at THD, working with Jazz and Sonia, and the stories that I've heard, it's just really an amazing, not only career path into a healthcare administration degree, but also what can you just do to better yourself and your community and other, things that you are involved with through a Lean Six Sigma lens, really. So I was just honored to be asked to be a part of this, and I'll kind of help. I've got some questions here, but as far as the people who are on the call, if you feel like kind of interjecting and raising your hand or showing your camera to ask questions, please do so. Otherwise, we'll just keep an eye on the chat and then kind of interject at the end in a Q&A as far as some good questions to ask. But thank you for inviting me. This has been really fun. So maybe we can just get started kind of with the basics of, I feel like maybe many of you know what is Lean Six Sigma, but kind of hearing from each of the panelists as far as how did you get introduced to Lean Six Sigma, and what is your interpretation of what it means in the workplace. So Sonia, why don't we start with you and see how did you first hear about Lean Six Sigma?
Well, Brett Barrett was the president of THD for about 5.5 years. Many of you on the call know Dr. Brett Barrett. And Britt, one of our first leadership meetings, he brought the book, Move My Cheese. And he said, if you guys haven't read this book, you probably should. And I have a bunch of copies in my office. So he was almost like a professor before he was a professor full time. And everybody in the room, I'd say about half the room had read the book and just said, if you're in healthcare or if you're in really industry period, you have to enjoy change, because change is the nature of business, period. But change is absolutely the nature of healthcare. And if change is painful for you, then healthcare is probably not for you. And about a couple of years prior to that, Lean Six Sigma was started at Texas Health Dallas. And, there was several announcements about Lean Six Sigma coming, and we all just knew LSS equals process improvement. That's pretty much all we knew. It was, we had no idea what we were in for. And at leadership one day, there was an announcement that every single leader, manager, director, and above, and that's around 150 people, were going to be required to take the Yellow Belt course and complete a Yellow Belt project. And from that point forward, we would then encourage our leaders and our team leads on our teams to then also take the Yellow Belt course. As many of you know that are on the call, it's Yellow Belt first. Well, it's white belt, then yellow, then green, then black. And with Texas Health Dallas and THR in prior years, there was the opportunity to get all belted, all of those belts, and earn those belts with THR. So I was first introduced to LSS through leadership. And my father, I come from an engineering background. My dad was a systems administrator for Vought and then Lockheed Martin. He just retired after 30 years. I love process improvement. I am naturally OCD in many ways. I think we all are. But I love practical things that make sense. And so I had a natural love and passion for LSS the moment I took that project on.
Wow, thank you. Well, so Jazz, speaking of black belts and master black belts, can you, I was on another call with you and you talked about kind of your history of how you got into it. And I think it is fascinating. So just kind of being the founder of Process Village itself, and maybe not everybody on the call is familiar with your history, but can you just talk to us about your first interaction and then your interpretation of Lean Six Sigma?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm glad you called on me next, because I have to make a comment about Sonia's comment, because I didn't know that her father came from Vought. And that's where I started.
What?
Yeah, I started my career at Vought Aircraft. And
Wow.
yeah, so I came out of college. I was a mechanical engineer. And I did an internship with Vault Aircraft, I was an environmental health and safety engineer. Intern. And when I got out of school, I was looking for a job. I was really trying to get into design, but they didn't have any design work, and they were like, "Well, we got this industrial engineer job." I had never even heard of an industrial engineer, but I said I'll take it because they were talking about organizing and doing things efficiently, and I was like, "That's right up my alley." So I spent probably 2 years just doing industrial engineering work, and then I was introduced to Lean. I did Lean for about 5 years, so I was probably at Vault for about 7 years. And after my 7th year, I really was looking for a change. I was really trying to find a new job. And as much as I love Vault, I was trying to get out of Vault. And I just couldn't get anybody to like, and I wanted to get into healthcare. There was Grey's Anatomy was my favorite show. And I was like, if I'm gonna make a jump, either I'm gonna make a jump to the Mavericks, doing process improvement for the Mavericks, or healthcare. And I couldn't get anybody to bite, look at my resume. At the same time, there was a call for Lean Six Sigma at the Vault, and I never heard of it. And I knew it was going to be like a year commitment, and I didn't want to stay because I was trying to leave and get a new job. But I talked to some mentors, and my mentors were like, "You need to go ahead and stay, do the training, and then we see what happened after that." And so that was my first experience with Lean Six Sigma. It was really, I was, and to be honest, it was the only thing that got me out of the job. I couldn't move because I really didn't have enough to separate me from everybody else. And once I got that certification, it was the thing that actually got me to Texas Health Dallas. So that was my experience, Quincy.
Wow. I've got some other follow-up questions, but I'm going to hold off on those for a minute. So I guess on the flip side, Bob Barker, can you talk to us a little bit about your experience at THD and just your first, kind of encounter or your first experience of Lean Six Sigma? And it'd be interesting to hear your perspective and Sonia's perspective as far as how it was rolled out to you.
There we go. So, I was trying to place the exact exposure point, but I can't remember exactly. But I knew Sonia through the volunteer services department, and we had done work in her office. At the time, I was leading the field services team, which is extremely process oriented. How to process tickets, complete tickets in a timely manner, and there was lots of problems. And I was having a conversation, and I believe it was with Sonia about the program, and she was telling me all about it, and I got really excited about it because that's the missing piece that the team needed to move forward. So after taking the class, I've done a project on hardware delivery times. So the average amount of time that it was taking us from the time that a customer put in a ticket to, say, get a keyboard was 46 days. And after going through the Lean Six Sigma class and making all the changes as part of the initial Yellow Belt project, we were able to reduce that to a 3-day turnaround time. So it was huge. I mean, it was a game changer. The customers were extremely satisfied. So that was all it took to convince me at that point. And then I pretty much voluntold everybody on my team they were taking this class and they were doing a project. So and that kind of began the journey. And once I had my team through, and we had some great project and success with that. Then I kind of turned on the rest of my department and became like the Lean Six Sigma cheerleader. And we did get quite a few other people. And I think at one point, nearly, I'd say 80 to 85% of the department had all been through Lean Six Sigma training. And, the majority of those had also completed the project. So, once you start to see those benefits manifest, and the customer satisfaction just goes through the roof, because that's really what it's about, right? Making the customers happy, in addition to saving things, but it's, making everybody's lives better. So this is a great tool for that. So that's how I got into it.
Great, thank you. I think what's so helpful to hear from you three to begin with is, we offer, like at UTD, we offer classes, you hear about the philosophy of it, you hear kind of this classroom concept of what this all means. And so I think when it really, the rubber meets the road is when we get to hear from people in the field, which is what they're preparing to do and how it actually applies. So how it equates to numbers, how it equates to patient care, and really the outcomes of where they will all be working. So I think as much as they can hear from you all, the better how these concepts apply to the real world. So thank you. I think that's all so helpful. And so then KP, I think to get to hear from you, the students on the call and those who are maybe still in the professional setting as well, having both perspectives of being a student, kind of going through this, the kind of the educational preparation of it, but then also the application of how you apply academics to industry, and then really how it's brought you to where you are today. I think is going to be so helpful too for the students to hear kind of that career path from you. So to start with, I guess, how were you first introduced, and how did that kind of apply to your career path at the beginning and where you are now?
Yeah, I think similar to Bob, Sonia has been kind of the centerpiece for me in that Lean Six Sigma pathway and trajectory for my career as well. And, I was started as a volunteer back in 2008 and kind of just really quickly connected with Sonia in terms of what I wanted to do. And I kind of think of just as just a little kid wanting a lot more of what I was getting out of. And I was the kind of person that never took no for an answer. And so I kind of begged and pleaded Sonia to let me do everything and anything that a volunteer could possibly do. And, just having that relationship with her throughout my college career, and then progressing through my master's academic career as well. There came a point where during that volunteer component, she had presented this opportunity. I think it was probably year 2 that Lean Six Sigma was really kicking off with the staff and the leadership team and whatnot. And I do remember that story that Sonia had told me about Britt Baird as well. And so, knowing nothing about operations or healthcare administration, or really, I was pre-med, so I was never really interested in any of those components, but I knew I wanted to grow in my career. And it kind of worked out because I then changed career pathways. And it was actually perfect timing because the opportunity to go to that Lean Six Sigma program, I remember Jazz and his team, kind of presenting and giving us all the materials and resources. But I still remember kind of the thought process. What occurred was for me is that it really changes your thought process and the way you think. And not just for big picture stuff. It's also the nitty gritty in the weeds type of thinking as well. A lot of the tools they teach us during the Lean Six Sigma, I went to the Yellow Belt course, and it's just a lot of the questions, the why, and empowering the individuals that go through this program and course to really just ask questions. And some of these processes that are implemented or, needing to be changed, it's simple as asking why. Why do we do certain things the way we do them? And then quickly realizing that, oh, there's actually a better way to perform that process or complete that process. And it really opened my eyes to see that you don't always need to think big picture to get something accomplished. You also have to focus on the nitty gritty, smaller processes to get to that bigger picture component. And so that was my initial introduction, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The program was amazing. Jazz and his team did a phenomenal job at educating and teaching that course. And that led to kind of some of the projects that I did with Sonia, with the internship program and just different cost savings that we looked at. And that's what really, I think, catapulted my career, is that as I was graduating my master's degree at University of Houston, I came to Sonia and said, hey, I need an opportunity. And I knew Sonia is the one person I always tell people that if you want to be successful, as long as you know Sonia, then you are golden. And I'm walking living proof of that. And so,
No pressure.
yeah, Sonia has been obviously a great mentor of mine and now a longtime friend, but a lot of what I've accomplished, she's helped me work through that. But from the Lean Six Sigma side of things, she really pushed hard and, got me the right opportunities, connected me to the right people. And I ended up doing a fellowship program at the Texas Institute for Surgery, which is at that time was a sister hospital, surgical hospital that's on the THD campus. I believe it still is. So, connected with the president there and kind of talked about some of the skill sets that I had and what I've done. And again, very little, just had graduating master's program, right out of college, very little experience. And again, like Jazz is, I needed to find experience, but how do you get that experience without anybody giving that opportunity? Fortunately, the president gave me that opportunity, and he also became a good mentor of mine now. And I took a lot of what I learned with Sonia, with Jazz, and the projects that I did at THD, and actually applied them through different organizations, not only with my fellowship, but even to this day as a CEO for my current hospital. The biggest one that I always push for is the internship program that Sonia created. That's near and dear to my heart, and I'm very passionate about it just as much as she is. And again, I see the value in it, and a lot of organizations fail to see value in the volunteer programs or even academic internships. And I believe we started the volunteer program at Texas Institute for Surgery, again, utilizing what I did through my Lean Six Sigma. And not only that, we created like a mini Lean Six Sigma program there where students from UTD would come on site to complete projects. I think they've still been doing that, but since the president's retired, I'm not sure if they've continued those projects or not. But again, just another way that I've been able to apply Lean Six Sigma in my career path. And then when I got to this position, fortunately, Select Specialty Hospital and Select Medical, we are already a very, very lean organization. So there's very minimal for me to even apply here, but I always think to myself, what else can we be doing differently? And I think that's the question that I really take away from it, is that anytime I look at something, it really changes your perspective on everything, not just healthcare. Even if I'm at home, it's small things like if my mom's vacuuming and I'm like, let me vacuum because you're all over the place. You're not doing it efficiently. I remember times where all the words that I really spoke were all these buzzwords in Lean Six Sigma, efficient, effective, cutting expenses, cutting costs, or ROI, whatever that may be. And at a point, it's like you live and breathe Lean Six Sigma. And I think that only comes with just having that passion. But again, the groundwork that these Lean Six Sigma courses set for you, I think really helps prepare you for the future and really what's important in this healthcare industry and in any industry that you end up with. And I really think that this pandemic this past year has taught a lot of organizations that they may be very heavy or they may not be as lean as they expect it to be. And I think a lot of organizations are starting to see the value in that. At least in Cincinnati, we did for sure. Partnering with different, larger hospital systems. That was one thing that kept on coming up, is how can we get lean? What else can we do? We have these processes that we have to improve. And for me, having that background, that's always something that I'm always passionate about bringing up, saying, hey, let's think about some Lean Six Sigma processes or projects and how we can implement them and whatnot. So for me, that's kind of how I got introduced. And then how I really apply that into my current career is just having that foundation that you learn through these courses.
So not only in industry and in your career, but in Adulting 101, how can we apply Lean Six Sigma to make your life easier? I'm going to have my kids watch some of that. So thank you so much. So Jazz, can you pop back to you for a minute? How would you say Lean Six Sigma has impacted your career? We heard a little bit about where you started and where you are today, but what would be your main takeaway as far as how the concepts and lean has impacted you in your career?
Well, Quincy, I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for Lean Six Sigma. I mean, really, it's like KP said. I mean, to me, it's a mindset, and to me, I think even Sonia said it a little earlier. What happens is you become comfortable being uncomfortable. Your mindset changes to how can I find the answer to always know, regardless of the problem, I can find the solution. And really, that's what makes you so valuable, is the fact that as you practice, you practice these concepts through projects. At a certain point, the discomfort of you not knowing, because there's nothing wrong with not knowing. I mean, I've gone into hundreds of projects not knowing what the solution is. But the key is I know the process will lead me to the solution at the end. And so I never have worry. And you can give me any project, it doesn't matter, because the tools have equipped me to work through problems. And so I think what that's done for me is, regardless of where I am in an organization, they know I'm a problem solver. And if you're a problem solver, you are valuable to your company. So I think it's really helped, at least establish my value at THR. So.
Great. So Bob, what about for you? Are there, as far as your own personal career, and then even maybe those who you have seen around you at THD, how have you seen Lean Six Sigma really impact your organization, your own career, and then maybe those around you?
Sure. Well, I just would like to point out that most people that I know that are really into Lean Six Sigma, they have a big hang up on organizing their closets. I'm just saying. You know who I'm talking about out there. No, but professionally, I believe that the level of customer service that we've been able to achieve using Lean Six Sigma has just overall leaps and bounds beyond what our initial expectations of going through this process would be. We're talking about taking processes that, like I gave my first example, take 46 days and just getting rid of all the garbage in the middle in just 3 days. You want to talk about happy customers? 3-day delivery time on something makes them really happy. And it's not just that. Organizing materials and just watching the mindsets of the people around you as you're kind of like bringing them into your Jedi circle of knowledge, because that's really what it is. It kind of is it's almost like a superpower once you learn it, because you just look at things in such a different way from how you did before. Like there's a before Lean Six and an after Lean Six mindset, and it doesn't ever go away. It's like it's just permanently burned into your brain after that. And then once you've kind of got it, you just really, like Jazz said, you can't look at something through any other lens really anymore. You just say, well, I don't know. I think there's a better way we could go about doing this. Let's try and figure that out together. And I think there's a sense of community that kind of grows around that process, right? So you've got a set of problems, and you may be working with cross-functional teams. This may not even be an IT project at all. There just might be a little component. So going through that process as a team builds great bonds of strength from the inside of the organization, and really from the bottom up, which in my opinion is where the true innovation lies. All of the ideas, not all of them, but a large proportion of ideas actually are coming from the bottom and bubbling up. And if we can utilize our tools to capture those ideas and build community and create better processes and ways of doing things that save us money and time and all those other things that are scarce resources, then we all benefit from it. And from a career standpoint, having that knowledge, it just it allows you to create these groups of people that are just capable of accomplishing just almost unthinkable feats of reorganizing things and making things better for others. So I mean, it's pretty much a win-win to have the knowledge and the skill sets built up.
Perfect. Thank you. And what a great segue, I think, to hearing from Sonia. I mean, you being the manager of volunteer services, your volunteers and your interns are woven into all of the practices within the hospital. And so, and talking about community and teamwork, and that it can't be done with just one person. I've heard so many stories from you as far as the work and the the meaningful work that's been done through your area and through students and interns. And so can you talk a little bit just about your experience, how you've seen it impact THD, how it's impacted you yourself in your career? And yeah, just let us hear about how it maybe even on a daily or just your overall view of how it's impacted your work.
I don't think I could justify and validate my career without Lean Six Sigma is at every point as far as who I am and what I do for a living. At this hospital, I am not a revenue generating service line. I'm not out there increasing the numbers as far as patient flow and who's coming to the hospital and what service lines we're promoting. And I knew that going in. Back in 2008, whenever I was recruited into Texas Health, the first thing the president at the time said, we need you to come in and recruit people. This hospital has been around for almost 50 years, and we have 150 volunteers, and they're all seniors. And we need some fresh energy. We need you guys to, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I need you to recruit 400 people in the first year. And like any naive professional, I said, yeah, I can do that. And he was like, well, how exactly are you going to do that? And I just used words like strategy and, fearlessness. But I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do that. But one thing about me and, one thing about my dad, we're just persistent. Everybody on this call that knows me knows that I am one thing, and that is persistent. But how I did it, number one, I came in and like a good engineer does, you take inventory of what is happening in your operation, right? And I realized that everything was super antiquated, that nothing was up to par as far as using technology and all of that. So that was my first hurdle. And then I realized that there were no connections. There were no connector of dots. Nobody was using networking. Nobody had any ties to the community. And I just needed to make that happen. And I'm really good at that. I spent 13 years prior to coming to Texas Health, working in the community and development for nonprofits. And so that's in my wheelhouse big time, just making friends and not ever meeting a stranger and understanding there's value in every person, no matter who you meet, right? And then I got introduced to Lean Six Sigma, and I absolutely realized that I had a massive opportunity to, number one, be a platform for an opportunity to serve a beautiful world-class hospital with patients and staff that were super talented, and connecting community members that had a passion to do that. But I also knew that there were students out there that needed exposure, that thought, in the back of their minds, like KP, I want to be in radiology. I want to be a radiologist whenever I grow up, or I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a nurse practitioner. I want to run a pharmacy. No matter what the questions were, they all were out there, and they were like, how am I going to do that as a freshman, junior, getting into this organization and volunteering? That is a great exposure, but how do you deeper dive? How do you get into the clinics? How do you get into the units? How do you round with our physicians? And it was around the same time that KP started volunteering, and he just kept hanging around my office and started asking 1,000 questions about, well, who does this and how does that happen? And with patient flow. And I was like, I don't know half the answers to what you're asking, KP, but I'm gonna find out those answers. And I realized that there are hundreds of KPs out there. And through the introduction of Lean Six Sigma, I also got to know many staff. Like I said, there's about 150 managers, directors, and above. Total, there's about 3,200 staff. I had a lot of people to meet. And I made it my business to meet everybody. I made it my business to figure out how I could support them. How could I take them to the next level of success? That's my job, right? So community connections, understanding the mission of the hospital, understanding that at the center of everything that we do is fantastic world-class patient care. and respecting all of those that were in the middle. And everybody has an important part to play. There's not one person inside the hospital that isn't important to the operation. And I know everybody's name. I respect what they do for the hospital, and I elevate them every single chance that I get. Lean Six Sigma coming into play and understanding that using these wonderful tools to connect all of those dots. We went from 150 volunteers to 400 volunteers in about 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
By connecting all of those dots. After starting the academic internship in partnership with KP, because I didn't start that by myself, Serve was Serve the step down to medical residency for all pre-med and pre-nursing students. That's what that program is. And then the academic internship is for healthcare management students. So it's 2 different academic programs. But Serve was born first, and that was born out of a conversation between myself and KP at lunch in the cafeteria at the hospital. You know, and we talked about what do students need? What are they lacking as far as exposure? Where are they having trouble as far as what are the obstacles from them getting from undergrad in bio to medical school? And how can we help them? And then once KP came on and we figured out that he wasn't going to go to med school and he really had a passion for operations, plug Six Sigma. And then we, got friendly with Jazz and just figured out that there was an opportunity that we could, take these healthcare management students along with these pre-med students and give them exposure to yellow belts, supporting our managers, directors, and above who were completing yellow belts. We went from an average of around 35,000 service hours annually to an average of 95,000 service hours annually.
Wow.
In about 3 years.
Wow.
3 to 5 years of me starting with Texas Health. So I may not be revenue generating, but we saved the hospital in labor cost alone around $2.5 million.
Wow.
We are top 10, right, Jazz, as far as performing and Lean Six Sigma producing departments. We're in the top 10 at Dallas.
In my book, we are.
We just have a lot of, we have a lot of really smart students that come in and complete projects. They're not only in my department, they're blessing the hospital in multiple departments. We have interns in about 15 departments throughout the hospital, clinical and non-clinical. And they have completed anywhere from 18 project-related projects within my department. And then, about a total of 30 projects just within the last decade, just out of the academic internship. That is insane. And I can't imagine I've never actually calculated the amount of dollars that has saved that hospital and maybe revenue generating opportunities. So it has absolutely changed my career. I am the SME for Texas Health when it comes to volunteer services. I am subject matter expert. That's what that stands for, SME. And, I get called on to participate in every committee that exists. I have to say no to a lot of them, but I owe my success to these 4 great gentlemen that are on the call, and every single academic intern that has come through our program. We've had 100 academic interns in 8 years. We've had 500 serve students in 8 years. The first serve class are practicing physicians, and KP, our very first intern, is a CEO. So there is absolute fruit in what I've done with my career, but I never did it alone. And that's the beauty of Six Sigma, is that it is a village and it is a community. To Bob's point, we respect each other. The moment I find out somebody that I'm talking to is a yellow belt, a green or a black belt, there's a whole nother level of connection, because they validate their professionalism and probably tons of their output as far as their career is concerned. I know that they know what they're talking about, right? And those are the people that I want to stay connected to.
And all of this inspired over a cafeteria tray of mashed potatoes.
I was very interested in what was that lunch. Man, were they
I
Chick-fil-A?
It was a
Wasn't Chick-fil-A.
salad for Sonia from the cafeteria, and I had a Subway sandwich.
Okay.
Wow, he
We
remembers.
had a
That's
corner booth.
Well, so KP, we would just love to hear from you. We have so many questions, I think, for you. And again, for those on the call, please stick if things come up, please unmute or put your questions in the chat. We're going to probably go until about 8 p.m. just as far as our questions go, and then we'll open it up for anybody on the call to have questions too. But so KP, just as far as, hearing your, I guess your advice on career preparation as far as how Lean Six Sigma for students on the call. We at UT Dallas, we sent this out to undergraduates through graduate students. And so as far as anybody else who's on here in terms of their place in their careers, I think we might have a variety of interests. But what advice can you give to students now if you're thinking undergraduate, graduate students, how they can get involved with Lean Six Sigma now in their careers in college, undergrad or graduate?
Yeah, I think I would follow suit with what I did is get to know Sonia. That's step one. And make sure you be good friends with her and be nice to her. She will definitely help you succeed. So again, just a big shout out to Sonia for everything she's done for me. And I can't emphasize on that enough. I do owe a lot of my success to her and her connections for everything that she's done for me. But really, I think first and foremost, you have to have a passion for what you're doing. In my, academic career, even when I was pursuing my master's program, I came across a lot of individuals that were choosing this profession as I just want to do this because I don't want to go to med school, or I can't get into med school today, but I'm maybe going to try it later. And it just becomes a plan B. And in my opinion, if I see that or hear that, to me, you're not really committed to this profession or to this industry. And I'll be very honest and frank, and I would never hire you. I don't want you working for me or an organization that this is your plan B. Now that could become your plan A because your plan A didn't work out, but that's fine. And you convert, and that's kind of what I did. I changed paths, literally my senior year of undergraduate. Advisors on campus told me that I'd be successful in the administrative and business side of healthcare. And I said, I don't think so, but I gave it a shot because I always trust my, mentors and advisors. And again, was finishing undergrad early enough in my education that I had a year that I can kind of, waste or kill to go get a master's degree in. And, even though I took my MCAT applied and, went through the whole process, I said, what the heck, let me try it. And I tell this to a lot of people and people look at me funny, but the day I started my grad school program, my capstone class, we went around the room asking what we wanted to do. And I was 21 years old. And first thing I said, I stood up in front of class, all these professionals, and said, I want to be the youngest CEO. And it was the most awkward and embarrassing moment for me because I see all these successful, employees and workers that have worked in the profession, and they're just kind of looking at me like, dude, shut up and sit down because you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, okay, fine. And I don't know, I just held on to that because I was inspired by, my professor. And I just continuously look back at my career and what I've done to get to that point. And there's really a couple of things I think that lead up to that. Number one was volunteering. Even to this date, I don't chase money. Money is not my motivating factor to do what I do. Being a CEO of a hospital, sure, you can get paid well, but that's not my motivation. I was just talking to some colleagues, and I do what I do because I really love it. I have a passion for it, and I'll be working 24/7 if I have to, but I don't expect any more compensation for it. And that's why I volunteered. I was fortunate enough that I was able to live on a very basic lifestyle, but I knew what was important for my career. Volunteering helped me, one, connect to the right people. I developed relationships with Texas Health Dallas colleagues, employees, people like Jazz, people like Bob, and soon the president, then Britt Barrett, and then even James Berg, who then became the president COO. So developed a lot of these relationships. Once I did that, I seek these internship opportunities. Again, I took a lot of unpaid internship opportunities. I did one with Sonia. And again, I think that's the biggest misconception. A lot of students that I speak to and a lot of students are looking for that next steps in their careers. It's, well, how much does an internship cost? How much will I make? What if I don't get paid? And it's like, everything's going to be okay. And I understand that not everybody can swing by on not getting compensated for an internship or time that they spend in an organization. But I've traveled the country from LA to UCLA, Houston to Florida, just doing internships that I didn't get paid for. And that's paid off. And you always have to look at the long run and the bigger picture. And like Sonia, I'm persistent and I don't take no for an answer. Where there's a way, where there's a will, there's a way. And what I like to say, if you can't get through the door, go around it. There's always an opportunity that you can find, but you have to be flexible. You have to be, just very versatile in what you're doing so that you can relocate. And again, I understand that's not always practical for everybody. Once I did those two things, the internships and, volunteering, in between all of that, the biggest role was the Lean Six Sigma component. A lot of employers, a lot of people that I ended up doing these opportunities with always ask questions about Lean Six Sigma. I think when I was going through it, that was still a very hot keyword that was being thrown around. It was very fresh. It was very new. And again, it's a lot of it's timing, right? And a very saturated market of healthcare professionals. Seeing that on my resume, it stood me out from everybody else because they had the ability to ask me questions relating to specific projects that I did. And as Sonia mentioned, that SERVE project, we saved $1.8 million annually that first year that we worked on that project. I promise you, take that number to any hospital CEO or president. I promise you'll find a job similar to Jazz because those are bottom line dollars that they can count for. And in doing so, I was able to get interviews and get opportunities that I probably wouldn't have because again, in college I was pre-med, so I wasn't focused on getting internships in the business side of healthcare. I was purely clinical focused, which is why I did the volunteer services piece of it. And then once I transitioned, only experience that I had were through internships. But if I hadn't had that Lean Six Sigma foundation and root to my career and my resume per se, I don't think I'd be where I am right now. Again, like all of us have mentioned, it is a perception and mindset shift. Once you go through that, you literally live and breathe it. And to Bob's comment about the closet, I am one of those individuals. My closet is Lean Six Sigma, and you do that to almost everything you live and breathe, and it just becomes a part of who you are. But again, I think that goes back to having that true passion. You can't just do Lean Six Sigma because it's a yellow belt or a green belt or a black belt or a white belt and it's a resume booster. Because guess what? When an employer starts asking you questions, the passion shows or the lack of passion shows. If you don't have it, that'll be the difference maker in getting those opportunities. And I think that's kind of what's helped me professionally progress to where I am. And that would be my advice, I think, to students and to anybody trying to progress in that healthcare profession. Again, keep in mind, it's a very saturated market. And even now more so than ever because of this pandemic when a lot of people were furloughed and laid off in a lot of organizations. So now you coming into this market with minimal experience, if this is your first career, you're competing against people that may have 20, 30 years of experience. So how do you stack yourself up against these individuals? And I think Lean Six Sigma does, because keep in mind, these people that were working 30, 40 years in this profession, like Sonny mentioned earlier, their mindset's antiquated. It no longer is a viable mindset in healthcare, and especially this dynamically changing healthcare. And this is just the first pandemic we're going through, right? I think many of you heard that Dr. Fauci is mentioning that there's going to be more of this probably in the future. Again, evolution, right? That plays a big role into that. And same thing in our careers. Lean Six Sigma is just that stepping stone. not just the yellow belt, not just that green belt, but really having that and desire to get to that black belt level, because that really will take things to the next level. And I think there aren't that many, there are many, but not that many at the same time. And if you're able to be flexible and agile and able to relocate geographically, I think people can really set themselves up for a lot of success. Even if you don't do what Jazz does and make that your full-time career. I didn't, that's not what I do full-time, but the foundation, that's the most important piece of it.
Oh, I wish we could take all of these notes and like put them on our website as far as advice for students, because I think these are questions that come up in really every setting that we have. What can students and then employees, people who are still in the field currently, what can you do to better yourself now with a view of the future? So I think that advice, I'm really glad that you're recording this, Jazz. And I think, if students and people who are already in the field can access this, I think this is really going to be valuable. So Jazz, I guess, popping over to you, what would be your advice as far as how can students and maybe current healthcare employees leverage Lean Six Sigma in their careers? What would be your advice for students and employees who know a little bit or maybe know a lot, but what would be your take on things?
Yeah, and I'll always shout it from the rooftops about the project, because I think, when we talk about Six Sigma, and everything that KP is talking about, if you do a project, I think you get it. You'll get the experience, you'll get the understanding, you'll be able to, when you go to your interview, it is the project work that you've done that really sets you apart from anybody. Because now, like KP said, the market is saturated. People have been stuck at home, and so they're like, okay, what can I do to better myself? A lot of people go online and they get certifications online, but the thing about it is, even if you have a certification, the question is, have you been able to apply it? And the project work is what will, at this point, set you apart from other people who have certified. Because when you go in, you could be like KP, you'll say, yeah, I did a project and we saved $1.5 million. The next person who has a certification can't say that. And so, you have to have practiced it to preach it. And if you haven't practiced it, it's very hard for you to be able to preach it to other people. So.
Can I just add a couple points to what Jazz was saying? In volunteer services is an HR arm. So within any healthcare organization, most volunteer services reports to HR because what we do is an HR function. I have seen yellow belts and green belts, and Jazz and I have talked about this a lot, that get certified and almost give themselves an advantage over their peers. We've seen people who are probably on the edge of losing their jobs that were not only able to keep their jobs, but are now leading their departments. So Six Sigma at the resume and introduction level of your career, of course, it absolutely will validate you and helps, those who are hiring managers to understand and underscore that you know what you're talking about. You understand operations on a very intimate level, that it's not just your little silo, your little world that you live in every day, that everything that you do affects everybody in the organization. But it can also save your job when you're in there, because they know that you and those tools you can use those tools to apply to constant process improvement. Those of us that are Six Sigma certified absolutely and have drank the Kool-Aid that processes never stop improving, that we are constantly finding ways and to fix things. And Bob and I are always saying, should we do that? We're always having conversations is, why is it done that way? And so we're not afraid to ask those questions. Whereas pre-Six Sigma, no one, was wanting to move the cheese. Nobody was, everybody was afraid to ask the questions, but it creates a culture of transparency and everybody wants to do a better job, and those people that were maybe behind the scenes and maybe didn't want to speak up become confident enough to become leaders in their industry, in their department. So
Great. Thank you. Well, so we've heard, I think sometimes it's helpful to hear if anyone made mistakes or what advice, what are things that maybe students or current employees, people looking to kind of better themselves, what are things that maybe they should avoid? Or are there any mistakes you've seen made kind of through the Lean Six Sigma lens? So, students can maybe think about, yeah, I guess just are there any mistakes that any of you have made or seen made? Maybe not yourself, of course, but others have made along the way for, to avoid wasting time, to avoid going down a path that maybe isn't useful. And I'll just give one example. I've had a few students who did the pay online for Lean Six Sigma certification, thousands maybe of dollars. And then they go to their job interview and they're asked, so tell me how you've applied these concepts, and they're stuck. And so they've said they've wasted, maybe months of time because, as Jazz said, they didn't have a project to say, here's how I've been able to apply this to my own, not just the knowledge side, but experience side of things. And so that's just some things that I've heard from students where they've said, unless you can actually do it, I mean, the whole point of why I exist, why our program exists, is to help prepare students to get jobs in the end. And what do students need to get jobs? As an undergrad, graduate. So anyway, any advice you would have as far as how students can avoid wasting time? Any thoughts?
KP, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the biggest factor is when you do those online programs, what they don't tell you is you don't have a champion, you don't have a quote unquote mentor for that project or that course, which is I think why the THD Lean Six Sigma program was so successful, and I'm sure the UTD program is probably very comparable to that. Is that you have a group of specialized individuals in person, physical human beings that are certified at the black belt level or higher. And what they're doing is they're guiding you, right? They're giving you that direction. I know during my class, we had a couple of individuals, I don't think they're there anymore, but they were you had a project champion, then you had a Lean Six Sigma, champion as well. And I think having those individuals along your coursework plays a big role, because when we had this idea for the serve and what we could do to implement and how it would impact the organization, a lot of it came down to is, what is going to be the benefit for the organization, right? What are you trying to improve, and how will it improve? Is it a cost savings? I think for Texas Health Dallas, there's like levels. If you're doing a yellow belt project, you have to save X amount of dollars. If you're doing green belt, it's the next tier. And then it was per person. So if you were a partner, you had to save that much more money, or whatever that may be for each organization. But I think the biggest difference in those programs online versus what you may get through Process Village or through UTD or even at Texas Health Dallas is the fact that you have dedicated resources that are humans, not just a slideshow or a PDF file of what to do. Because don't get me wrong, any of us can go to YouTube and figure out how to become a Lean Six Sigma black belt. No disrespect, Jazz, but that's the world we live in. But does that mean you're going to be the next Jazz? Absolutely not. Because Jazz has had hands-on experience. All of us that have had our Lean Six Sigma certifications, we've had physical hands-on experience in organizations and have made impact in processes that the organization probably still uses to date, right? For Bob, it's his IT department. For Sonia, it's the SERV program, the academic internship program. These are active things that are benefiting the organization to date. And I think that's the biggest thing is, don't just, again, like I said earlier, don't just chase titles, don't just chase credentials. Do it with the intention because you have a passion and because you want to be successful at it. And don't get me wrong, I went through a phase where I just could not get my Lean Six Sigma green belt completed because I had different things going on in my career. And it did at a point, it crossed my mind to say, I just need to get that credential and I'll be okay. And then if it weren't for my mentors to say, what benefit is that going to do or have for you? Will it really impact your career or progression? and thought about it and said, you're right. What will this credential do for me? I don't know, because I wouldn't have had the right experience or the exposure that I needed to. And I've seen it. I've seen when I actually was in Gainesville, Florida at the organization, we were actually interviewing a couple of clinical leaders, and they happened to have Lean Six Sigma. One did and one didn't. But the difference was the person that had the Lean Six Sigma experience got it online. And like Jazz had mentioned earlier, when you ask these questions about what did you do or how did you do it, they don't have anything. They don't have projects that they can speak to, or they don't have anything that they said, oh, I've saved amount of dollars for this organization. Their feedback is, oh, I took it on, so-and-so university because they were giving me a 50% discount in the course, and I needed to do this so I could progress in my career. Guess what? We didn't hire that person. Whereas the person next to that individual, it's like, oh, I don't have it, but these are the values that I bring in my organization as a respiratory therapist, a manager. I've improved the department by 20% by changing these policies and procedures. Didn't have a Lean Six Sigma certification, but I knew that person was the mindset that the person was having. And that person then, once we hired them, did go through a formal Lean Six Sigma program. And that respiratory therapy manager is now a regional respiratory therapy manager within our organization. So again, I think the difference is don't chase the credentials, don't chase just the titles of what you're getting. Chase the opportunities and what it's going to bring to you as a value. The hands-on, I can't stress enough, the hands-on experience that you get through Process Village, through Texas Health Dallas and the internship program or SERV program is far more instrumental than just trying to get a certification just so you can get recognized. Because somebody will see through it. I assure you that. And you don't want to be in that situation, because then you've put a bad taste in that employer's mouth and maybe you'll never get a job with them. And so really the key is just finding those opportunities that provide those hands-on experiences. And again, just like I said, don't chase titles, don't chase credentials. I promise you they won't get you anywhere or far. If they do get you somewhere, you can only fake it till you make it for so long. And the further you climb in your careers, somebody will catch you on it, and it'll just be a downfall from there. So that would be my advice, is just be cautious and use your judgment.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So I guess I'm just looking at the clock and we're at 8:10. So we're a little bit past 8. I know I still have other questions for the panelists, but does anybody have a question at this point that they would like to unmute and ask or stick in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I have a question. This is Sean speaking. And this is probably a pretty, like, I guess, a deeper question. But like, Lean Six involves a lot of data analysis and statistical methods, especially in the measure part of DMAIC, DMADV, and things like that. But, what are some of the tools and are there new data integration and data analysis techniques, whether it's on the IT side or other, arenas in Lean Six that are especially happening at this time or have had a good disruption, during this pandemic in terms of data analysis and trying to chart those things?
Yeah, I guess I'll answer this. Well, I mean, the great thing about Lean Six Sigma to me is that it is fairly flexible. I mean, it is built for flexibility. So I'll tell you, I don't think there's been leaps and bounds of changes because of the pandemic, because the whole philosophy of Lean Six Sigma is that regardless of the situation, what we have will get us to where we need to be. And so, during this pandemic, and we talk, you said it, the MADV, those phases stay the same, right? And regardless of if we're trying to understand how to improve a vaccine clinic, how do we increase the throughput, or, how do we make sure that we are, doing tests appropriately? I mean, we still use this exact same tools. I think that's the best way to say it. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just I guess you can say a testament to, the robust part of all this process improvement, and that something like this, like a major disruptive event, even though, we're looking in different directions and we're looking for answers, sticking to some of those things that you said are still very important, very crucial. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I will give one story. I was at a conference and the guy, he had been trained by Toyota, who, they came up with Lean. And, he was a supervisor of his group, whatever they were making at Toyota. And the Toyota guys, the senseis, because, the guys who are like the experts are called senseis. They came to his unit and they took a person out. And he was like, what's the deal with that? He said, we're doing the best. Why would you do that? And it was because regardless of where they were in their performance, the mindset is that you always be ready for change. And so that's the philosophy. The philosophy here is that you're always ready to change when you need to change. So I don't know of any any real changes since the pandemic. I just think it's made it more necessary to use the philosophies.
Thank you so much, Chaz.
Yeah, no problem.
If I can speak to that, I spent the first 8 months of the pandemic working every single day while many industries went home. And one thing that I was asked to do was open up donations from the community to our healthcare workers, our healthcare heroes, to feed them. We just had a ton of community members and donors that wanted to feed our staff. And for whatever reason, everyone said, Sonia, we furloughed the volunteers. Why don't you start that? And nobody told me how many meals to accept. I just said, well, I know there's 3,200 employees and everybody deserves a meal. The first day we took on that little project, I think I came up with the plan within about 6 hours. The first day we received 300 meals. 3 days later, we received 1,500 meals for lunch and 1,000 meals for dinner. And we did that for 7.5 months, 5 days, sometimes 7 days a week. In total, we received around 48,000 meals, probably about 100 pallets of drinks. And it was the community's love letter to those who were sacrificing many, many hours, isolating themselves away from their families. So in the world of the pandemic, it was myself and a couple other yellow belts that got together and came up with this plan in 6 hours to impact our staff in a really, really mighty way. The community members could not come into the hospital. That all of a sudden we went on lockdown. Our patients were, if they were COVID, of course, they didn't have any visitors. But the bottom line is that we were able to keep in touch and still stay engaged with our community, even in the most creative ways. And Six Sigma created that process. So,
wow, amazing. This is the purpose. I think this theme I keep hearing you all talk about is, this is a field that is, you must be purposeful and intentional about it, and it's the meaning behind it. So, Lean provides such an interesting and needed structure, but it's the people and the passion behind it, I think, especially in healthcare, that makes it such a different environment, I guess. And so then for people who are either in the work or are preparing to go into the work, hearing from you all, I think is just, it solidifies why they are studying for so long to get into this career. So, any other advice that you all would have as far as people who are getting ready to embark on a career in healthcare, whether it's, through the lens of Lean, or other advice, what would you have to say for those on the call who are getting into this career?
Bob, I think that you should share how IT had to be nimble and flex and pivot in this world of COVID. Because I know that you guys had to go through an entire process change in regards to responding to the pandemic and the needs of the units, moving units, growing units, adding more. I just think that you should probably share that story. It's pretty impactful.
Sure. So when the pandemic started, there wasn't a lot of, I guess, there wasn't a lot of technology in place to keep people out of the rooms. And it wasn't a problem at first. But after a few months, when we started to see patient loads starting to pick up, it became clear that we were going to need some kind of an IT solution that would give us communication capabilities within the rooms, video capabilities, because the patients were essentially trapped alone. The only individuals that they could see would be nurses covered in masks and gowns and everything else. So a pretty lonely experience. So the solution that we came up with was to deploy probably about 100 and maybe 120 or 150 iPads on stands into the rooms. So we had to build all of these things ourselves from scratch. We had to program all of the iPads from scratch. Once we had developed kind of a process for rolling these things out, we got pretty efficient at it over time. It allowed the patients to communicate with their loved ones that were outside of the hospital. Which was, that was really important for them. And unfortunately, in some cases, these would be the last communications that those patients would even have with their family. And without that technology, there would have been nothing. So very, very close to our heart project for sure. I think that the technology solutions just in general from the experience has ultimately changed the way that we do business, period. Like at this point, everybody is used to working remote, doing Zoom meetings. A meeting like this 2 years ago, we wouldn't probably even be thinking about it really, not in this form. But now where everybody's so comfortable with it, I mean, we're seeing a radical shift in remote working and using these video conferencing technologies for communication. If you analyze how people are working now, you see people are just getting in an RV and driving off to some place that's got Wi-Fi, and they're just working remote now, which is great. It's great that technology has changed, and it's given a lot of freedom to people who traditionally wouldn't have had that freedom. I think that Lean Six Sigma has impacted technology in a very significant way, and I look forward to continuing to work within the Lean Six Sigma framework to develop these solutions for our organization, not just for our hospital, but for the entire company. The money saving potential is massive. And of course, IT systems are built for data collection. I mean, we crunch numbers, from everything from patient information, inventory, our entire supply chain. There's just so many opportunities there. And I think that we're just scratching the surface at the company as to the true potential of how these IT systems can be leveraged to save money and save time and honestly save lives in the long run. So there you go.
Wow. That's some meaningful work, I would say. So what other feedback, advice, input do any of our panelists have just about Lean, and then also just about careers kind of getting into the healthcare space?
I got one quick thing I want to say. If you find yourself in a project that looks like it's going nowhere, do not be afraid to abandon what you think may be a bad project. Projects sound really good, but when you start into them, sometimes they turn out to not be so good. So don't be afraid to step away from a dud if you see one.
great advice.
And I want to reemphasize what KP said about, I mean, being relentless. And, because I know some students will say, well, I don't have a job and I don't have an internship. So how can I mean, you can't let that kind of stuff stop you, and I always tell the story when I was trying to get out of my job at Vaught. And the first place that I went to was Parkland to try to find a job in healthcare because I knew people there. And so, I asked them to put in a good word, and I didn't get any response back. And I talked to the director over there in operational excellence, and he's like, well, I'm sorry, you don't have any healthcare experience. And I'm like, well, if you give me a chance, I'll show you that I could do healthcare. But that's the game, right? You don't have the experience, so it's kind of. And so I said, you know what? I said, hey, I got a job, so I have to work full time. I said I'll work for free, weekends and nights. I said I'll work whatever I can work as long as I got to keep my day job. I'll do whatever I need to do to show you that I can do the job. And he didn't take me up. He probably thought I was crazy. Didn't take me up on it. But that's the level that I was willing to go in order to set myself apart from anyone else who was like, okay, well, he said no, I can't. You have to figure out ways to get around these obstacles because that's how you're going to set yourself apart.
And I'd like to just piggyback off that. That also doesn't mean you just go to people and ask them for jobs either. I think that's something that I've come across lately is that this generation, and I'm not too far from you guys, so I can relate a little bit to it, but is that you find a network, you find a contact, and a couple conversations later, it's like, oh yeah, so I'm actually looking for a job or an opportunity. Can you help me with that? Right? It's like, I don't know you. I don't really know. I don't have any judgment or opinion about you. I can't really just give you a job, right? But like Jazz said, I think that goes back to what I said earlier, right? You've got to volunteer. You've got to take those unpaid opportunities because in reality, I think the most valuable opportunities are the ones that they don't pay you because it's on you. It's on you to make the most of those opportunities. And I think for me, at least, is when I'm not paid, sometimes I'm driven more because that's time that I'm putting into it. And there is no immediate value to it, other than what's going to come in the long run. And I think if you are able to keep your head up and fight through the no's and fight through those closed door opportunities, I think just like all of us have done it so far, they will come. You just, again, just have to keep your head up and keep on fighting through them. Every door closed is another opportunity for another door to open. But you've got to do everything in your power to be flexible, to take on what you've learned and be prepared for those no's. But I always like to say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and getting a no is not going to kill you. I promise you. It will make you stronger because that'll just show you what opportunities you can't get. But there will be that opportunity that will come your way. And I assure you that you will be successful if you have that grit and relentless nature.
Thank you.
I think everybody has touched on and stolen my fire. Thanks, guys. Just kidding. Honestly, when it comes to the academic internship, I'm a bottomless pit of advice, and there's not enough time on this panel. But I guess the strongest takeaway is most folks that are Six Sigma passionate are the above and beyonders of the world. We're the ones who stay late. We're the ones who get to work early. We're the ones who don't make excuses. We're the ones who like to finish, not just start. And that's the beauty of Six Sigma, is that it can absolutely be the happy ending to your career. I don't care where you are, what you're doing. There is not one professional that cannot benefit from Six Sigma. It has absolutely impacted and continues to impact my life and my career. It very much impacts my closet. I am a fashionista, and
Yes,
everybody knows that.
Yes, we do.
My color coding is phenomenal. I love it, you know. But the bottom line is, seriously, you will never regret. You know, many of us regret many moves and decisions we've made in our lives. There is not one person in my entire experience that I've ever met that has completed their yellow belt, their green, their black, and become even a black belt that has regretted it.
Perfect. Anybody else? Any final thoughts or closing statements?
I have
From our
just one
panel.
thing I
Yeah.
want to say. I strongly recommend for all the students out there that you work hard on building a good network of mentors, because meeting with the people that surround those mentors creates opportunity for you. I believe that the people that you associate with can create a reputation for yourself. If you hang out with the best and that's who you surround yourself with, then guess what? You're going to meet the best. So those people are going to know people who have opportunities available and can make suggestions on how you can further your career and things like that. So get to know them on a personal level, not just in passing in a hallway. Ask them about their lives, their what their interests are and things like that, and make an effort to get to know people, because you'll find is that as you get to know people better, and the more comfortable they become with you, the more willing they are to share their secrets of how they get to where they are and where those opportunities may be. They're some of the best resources out there, and if you lean on them and they can feel comfortable leaning on you, you're gonna create opportunities for yourself that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Wow.
I don't know if Jazz is going to plug Process Village, but I'm going to do it on his behalf. I am a friend and silent partner of Process Village, and there are ways to get your Six Sigma yellow belt, and there are ways to move on with your career. But we've already talked about how just to have the certification is not enough. Just to have that, framed certificate on the wall is not enough. If you want to learn from the best, he is on the call right now in the form of Jazz Patterson. And you're also not going to find a course that's as economical as Jazz offers. So you're going to get the highest of quality of training with quality support and coaching. You're not going to find it anywhere else, guys. So shameless plug for my friend Jazz Patterson in Process Village.
Thanks, Sonia. And now
I'll
you
second that,
see.
and I'm not a partner either, but I will second that because I did it at Texas Health, and you can't get any better. I've come across a lot of black belts, but Jazz is probably as genuine and as real as it gets. I am not a silent partner, but for the record.
We're all partners because we're part of the village. So I do appreciate y'all, just saying that. And now you see why KP hangs around Sonia, because you hang around her, she's gonna make you successful. That's why I hang around her. So I thank y'all for that. And I thank everybody for being on the call. We're at 8:30, and man, I appreciate all of, we actually had more questions, right, Quincy? We had more that we could have went through.
I got a list.
But I appreciate all of the panelists, Sonia, KP, Bob, Quincy. I appreciate you moderating, and for all you who stuck around to hear the words, I appreciate y'all just joining us tonight. So we hope to see you again soon. We're going to have more events, and again, our whole objective, and it is it. I mean, KP says he's not a partner, but to me, he is a partner, because this whole Process Village thing is about working with others to help us all become successful. And so, we will do more in the future to try to help professionals and students as they try to progress in their careers. And we just thank you for tonight. So
amen and amen. Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank y'all.
This has been really fun. Thank you, everybody.
Been
Thank you
great,
so much.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Take
Bye.
good care.